always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to Groundhog Day in the Northern Hemisphere. And I'm Don Jackson around the world on the internet. It's the day we rely on the weather prediction of a small furry creature who emerges from his burrow. If he sees or doesn't see his shadow, it is supposedly a prediction for the rest of our winter. The film Groundhog Day with Bill Murray had him caught in a mysterious cycle that repeated itself simply because he didn't properly predict the weather. Would you like to live this day over and over again until you made amends for your mistakes? Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, and In Sync, and This I Promise You. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Our meteorologists use complex computer programs and software, satellite images and Doppler radar, trying to accurately predict the weather just for the next few days. The groundhog relies upon his shadow, or the lack of it, to predict the next 6 weeks of winter. In the past, the little animal has been more accurate than our long-range forecasts made with the help of all of our technology. Sometimes, though, he has failed miserably. And yet we are interested to hear what he has predicted, in the hope that he will give his blessing for an early spring. Maybe he has dreams of a repeating cycle, not unlike the day Bill Murray's character had to live over and over again. I've heard that there is a certain animal rights organization that would like us to leave the groundhog asleep in his winter burrow. They feel it's cruel to rouse him from his hibernation. Meanwhile, all of this gives us pause to consider a cycle that repeats itself. A few thoughts about that this hour with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Michael Bolton, Sole Provider, Kelly Rowland with Unity, and Jacksoul on That Lonesome Highway. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Real love stories never have endings. Richard Bach from The Bridge Across Forever, published by Morrow. Those who believe in reincarnation or multiple lifetimes believe that we keep coming back until we learn the lessons we need to master in order to move on to the next level. The same is done on the next level, and so on. Eventually, we will attain something akin to perfection, but it may take many lifetimes to get there. I don't know if I completely subscribe to the idea of reincarnation, but I do like to keep my options open. Some of us appear to be old souls. If you think you're one, then there is so much that seems familiar to you in this life. And maybe that's where déjà vu comes into play. There appears to be a wisdom beyond your years. They say that you can see an old soul in the eyes of one who is. A young soul, or someone who is taking their first trip in this lifetime, seems to be full of wonder and takes delight in the simplest of life's pleasures. That person may also be somewhat shy, hesitant to take chances. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. James Taylor with Fire and Rain, and Leona Lewis and Happy. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. If someone you love has recently passed on, you may still be grieving for them. But the truth of the matter very well might be the fact that they learned the lesson this lifetime needed to teach them, and they're on to the next level. This is an excerpt from the book Life Lessons by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler, and I quote, "It's sometimes hard to see what the lessons are. It's difficult to understand, for example, the children who die at age 2 may have come here to teach their parents about compassion and love. Not only may we have difficulty understanding what is being taught, we may never know which lessons we're supposed to master. It would be impossible to master them all perfectly. And there are undoubtedly some dragons we're not supposed to slay this lifetime. Sometimes not slaying them is the lesson. It's easy to look at someone and say, oh, it's so sad. He didn't get the lesson of forgiveness before he died. But maybe he still learned what he was supposed to. Or perhaps he was presented with opportunities to learn, but chose not to. And who knows, maybe he wasn't supposed to get the lesson by forgiving. Perhaps you were offered an opportunity to get the lesson of forgiveness by watching him. While we all learn, we also teach." Unquote. An excerpt from Life Lessons by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Supremes and Someday We'll Be Together and Justin Hines and I Wish You Well. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. There was a television commercial some time back that had a young man and woman standing across subway tracks from each other. She set to go in one direction, he the other. Their eyes met. She got on her train, he dashed up the stairs, out of the station, and raced to meet her train at its next stop. He was there as the doors to the train were just about to close again. They stared into each other's eyes, and during that brief moment, hesitating when he should have climbed aboard the train, the doors closed once more, and he was off running again, trying to catch the train and her at the next station. Maybe you've had a similar experience at a subway station, waiting on a crowded platform, being intrigued by one face in a sea of faces. An old soul recognizing another old soul. An old soul you've met on the last go-round. Is that what a soulmate is? Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com.
I will.
Ray Charles with Norah Jones and Here We Go Again, and James Blunt and You're Beautiful. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. This whole idea may not be that far from the truth. I turned to the book published by the Reader's Digest called Why in the World? And I quote, "Astronomers' theories about the Big Bang and an expanding universe are so hard for most of us to comprehend that scientists have tried to explain them in everyday terms. The universe expands because of the cataclysmic force that came with its birth. But it would be wrong to think of the Big Bang as a kind of bomb whose explosion sends splinters into space. Until that moment, 15,000 million years ago, there was no space. The Big Bang created it and everything within it. Astrophysicists debate whether the universe will expand forever. It depends, they believe, on gravity, the force that one body exerts on another. Surprisingly to most people, the force that binds the moon to the Earth, for example, also acts between one galaxy and another. If there were no gravitational force, the universe would expand much more quickly. Gravity slows it down. Eventually, the pull of gravity could put such a brake on the universe's expansion that it comes to a halt and switches suddenly into reverse. The pieces will start on a long return journey, a collision course that could end where it all started, in another Big Bang. Another side of the argument is that the total mass of the universe, its constituent parts, is not great enough to allow gravity to take over in that way, in which case the expanding universe may be forever. Unquote. As it said, as the title of this article, in the end, there may be a new beginning. Unquote. But you and I will never see it. We're talking of timescales here that are billions and billions of years. But in that explanation is the film Groundhog Day on a huge scale. That we go back to the beginning and start all over again. If that is the case, you can't help but wonder how many times we will get to do it before we finally get it right. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.